Boo. I've given up trying to predict when this video is gonna come out in the grand scheme of things. Maybe my worst of best will be out by then. Maybe not. I'm not sure. I have a lot of things in the works. Obviously my opiate reaction, as I mentioned in that video, got taken down because of stupid copyright things. So today we're going back to my random number generator series. So if you don't know how this series works, again, I basically use a random number generator to pick a random album out of the chart that's on your screen right now. And it could be from any genre: jazz, metal, rock, classical music, pretty much anything that you can name, it's on the chart. So this is scary for me, entertaining for you guys. You might get an album that you know really well, or you might be watching me react to an album that neither of us have any idea how it sounds. So that's part of the fun of it. Alright, so as you can see here, I have my trusty random number generator up here, loaded up with numbers 1 to 35. That's the amount of unlistened to rows on this here chart. I'll be obviously picking the row and then the album within that row. So I'll know what genre I'm going to hear from before I actually know the album. Let's see what the music gods have in store for me today. So the row of albums that I will be pulling from this chart will be, drum roll, 34. Oh god, we have metal again. Oh wow. Okay, well, what metal albums are in this row? 35, 34. Okay, so I haven't listened to a single album from this row. God, look, the thing is, I said this in my Vector review, which I previously got that Vector album in a past random number generator video. Wasn't a big fan of that album, at all. Again, I've very minimal experience with metal, so these four here, plus one or two others, are pretty much the only metal albums I've ever listened to. So in that sense, it's probably good because I'm broadening my horizons through this channel, and I know there are a lot of huge metal fans on the internet, so you'll be able to see me react to some classic albums. Problem is, I don't know any of the albums here. I know I have actually wanted to listen to, I think that's an ISIS album. Yeah, what an unfortunate name, by the way. I've been wanting to listen to that album for a while, so that could be cool. I see a Melvins album. I actually didn't know that they were a metal band. I thought they were a post-hardcore band or something, so that's interesting. Other than that, I don't really know much about any of these albums. I think that's a bonus album. So I think the guaranteed thing is that from all the albums of this row, I haven't heard a note of any of them. So there's no need to go on about how I've heard little bits and pieces, because I have not, whatever it is. So let's just do it. I'm a little bit scared, but the album I will be listening to today is number 6. Is that the Melvins album? It is the Melvins album. Okay, what's it actually called? Could help. Okay, Houdini by the Melvins. So I've heard about this band. I've heard some decent things about this band. I actually didn't know, again, that they were a metal band. I thought they were a noise rock band, maybe post-hardcore, something like that. And so it's interesting to see them under the metal category. I've heard people who like Swans, which is one of my favourite bands, do like the Melvins as well. So my laptop is just on low battery, as you can see. And yeah, I'm guessing this will be closer to the noise rock sort of side of things, rather than the blast beats and insane technical stuff that a lot of metal is known for. But I could be completely off with that assessment. So I guess because this is obviously a more popular metal album by the sounds of things, or a popular rock album, not as scared or nervous about this as I am with, say, a Vector or a Discordance Axis, but it'll still be interesting to see. I mean, this could be one of my favourite albums by the end of this. You never know. Okay, the album's all set on Tidal, it's ready to go. It's actually ultra high quality version of the album, which is on Tidal, so hopefully the fidelity will blow me away, but we'll see. So it's 13 tracks long, and as has been the case with pretty much every album I've listened to on this system and on this YouTube so far, there's at least one really long track. So the last track, Spread Eagle Beagle, looks to be 10 minutes plus long. Again, I can't see how exactly long it is, but the rest are much shorter. So we only have 1 7-minute track other than that, and the rest are 4 minutes and below. So not a particularly exhausting album by the looks of it, not a ton of super long songs. So that's good. I'm ready for this to hit me. I don't really know what style of metal this is, what style of rock, but I look forward to it, whatever it is. Let's go. I've put the volume down a tiny bit because I don't know how loud this is going to be mastered, but track 1 is called Hooch, 2 minutes 49 long. Don't know what this is going to sound like, but that's part of the fun. So, without further ado, this is Houdini by the Melvins. Let's go. Yeah, this is super chunky and pounding and aggressive so far. Not like hyper fast or technical. I actually thought it'd be like on the faster side, but closer to like a Pixies or something. Than oh god, this is like doom metal or something, or at least really sludgy hard rock. I love how those snare drums sound like gunshots. They have this real crack to them, so excellently produced and mastered. And his vocals are very Maynard-esque. They have a sort of cool, clean tone to them that a lot of metal vocalists with their like intense screams and screeches and stuff don't have. So far so good. Yeah. Okay, that was really cool. I actually liked that a fair bit. That was Hooch, first track, very short, much on the shorter side. It's 2 minutes 49. Like if I know better, if you had just given me sort of that like blindfolded and put in the middle of say Undertow by Tool, I would say that there was nothing wrong. I'd say that they were made by the same band. Honestly, but I think these guys, if I'm not mistaken, like predated Tool by a fair bit. If I'm not mistaken, I might be. And if that's the case, like that sounds to me like the single biggest influence on early Tool. Like from the pounding, sludgy sort of power chord riffs to the sort of subtle bass line that sort of hides behind the mix a bit, which is a common thing with especially early Tool. To those vocals, which again, as I said, like pretty melodic, surprisingly, for music of this sort, and are sung in a really high register, which is a Maynardism. It's a very common Maynard trope, and even down to that drumming. I mean, the drummer here isn't as hyper technical as a Danny Carey or anyone, but he drives the song forward, or she drives the song forward with this excellent propulsive sort of repetitive rhythm that does give me echoes of early Swans, Filth era, Cop era. Could be I hear lots of elements of Filth era Swans, with the pounding sort of repetition of it and the just endless, like, driving propulsive nature of the song. So I hear lots of influences to that, and then things that's influenced, and I think especially Tool, their complete early sound to that band. So it's just a really interesting thing to note. I like that melody, the vocal melody. I liked how bluesy it was with the da-da-da-da, that sort of thing going on, which just added a really nice swagger and sort of funk to the song. Overall, I think, I've mentioned pretty much all, because it's a short track, that was 2 minutes 50. But that was just really short, to the point, and in your face, in a way that was actually surprisingly accessible to me, who has like very little experience with metal. Full stop. It was done in a way that made me like appreciate that, and it means that I'm still sort of humming that melody and stuff even after I've heard it. I love the swagger that track had. I love the groove that track had. Really catchy. I mean, I'm not like obsessed with it or anything, but if the rest of the album is in this vein, and if it sort of changes itself up a little bit, I could see myself really liking this. So, love the instrumentation. I love the production too, which I didn't really mention, but the production gives it all the instruments sort of necessary definition and clarity, while making sure they still sort of sound gruff and distorted, just enough. And I love the general structure and melody of that track. I thought that was really fantastic, but I need to hear more of the album to get if the rest of it's like that and if it's just as good. By the looks of it, I think it might be. Yeah, so great start. We're going to move on from track 1. Track 2 is called Night Goat. So this is a bit on the longer side, 4 minutes 41. I should stress, like I said before, I can't make out the lyrics in that, at least that first track, apart from the Real Man lyrics. So I can't really go into that side of things like I have been able to with, say, a Tool. So I have no idea what hooch is. Well, I know what hooch is, but I don't know what it means in the context of the song, and I have no idea what a night goat is. Maybe this song will educate me. I don't know. We'll see. Track 2, Night Goat. Let's go. Yeah, that gets a big thumbs up for me. Night Goat, man, that took the propulsiveness of the first track and like honestly pushed it up to 11. Super, like just groovy and like the sort of song you don't have to like headbang to in the true metal tradition of like to thrash metal style, but you can just like groove along and nod your head to and just like fall into it, dissolve into it. That was just a gorgeous soundscape, fantastic, driving, propulsive, punchy song that stayed in like the similar tradition that the first track did, but introduced new sort of elements into it. Chief among which was that more traditional drum groove, which sort of stayed pretty consistent among the whole thing, except the breakdown thing at the end, where the drums sort of let go and the song sort of transitioned into this amorphous section, which I really liked, by the way, and I liked how it picked up again towards the end before the fade out. But yeah, the drums generally did the sort of boom, boom, ka, boom, 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 ka thing, which added even more of a swagger to the track and even more of a propulsive sort of feel. I'm trying to think of a synonym for propulsive. I'm sorry I'm saying it so much. From the vocalists, we got the same sort of upper register stuff with the quite defined melodies, which I liked, but we also got a scream, like a real screech, which is it was a nice little touch. And the guy has, whoever he is, has fantastic vocal chops, really. So I liked that a lot. I liked how it sort of vamped on one chord pretty much for the whole song, right? Which just goes to show, like, that some of the best metal and some of the best sort of sludgy music like that can subsist on one chord. Again, going back to the Swans thing, which is a very typical thing for Swans to do. You wouldn't even notice it, that it got like boring or anything, because it really didn't. Even despite vamping on the same thing for 4 minutes. And also credit to them for keeping it short. That was only 4 minutes long. I think it could have gone longer if they wanted it to, but I think they correctly identified that, it was quite a dour and sludgy track as it was, and bringing it out too much would probably jeopardize that a little bit. Jeopardize the immediacy that it's retained throughout the whole thing, so I loved that. I love the soloing work from the guitar. Man, that's the first real guitar showcase I had on this album so far, even though we're only 2 tracks in. But first major guitar showcase. I love the huge amounts of distortion and feedback you just slathered over that super cathartic moment with those sort of screechy squalls on the upper register of the guitar. I thought that cut straight through the sludgy bass work extremely well. Is this sludge metal? Is that what you call it? Because I keep using the word sludgy, which seems like a pretty accurate descriptor of this album, and like it is very sludgy. So I've heard people describe albums as sludge metal before, so I hope that's not a pejorative term. I don't think so. So hopefully this is what you'd actually call that. But yeah, I thought the guitar work was just fantastic in that. Again, I couldn't make out the lyrics that well, so I'm not going to try and deliver commentary on that. But yeah, I loved that. I hear sort of through lines between this and now, like Nine Inch Nails as well, I think. I mean, particularly when you get an EP like Broken, which was released in 91, which I'm guessing is well after this album was released. I hear tons of through lines from a track like this to a track like Happiness in Slavery, or even A Last or something. From the way they're produced to the way Trent sings, the way the guitars are integrated into the mix, pretty much all of it. So I'm guessing this is a super influential and a super groundbreaking band. And man, if this is, I don't know when this came out, but if this came out before the 90s or something, there was like no other music like this happening at the time, or at least not happening in the mainstream. Swans did something similar, but they didn't add the sort of swagger that this has to it. So I think this is a really fantastic album so far with the 2 tracks we've done so far. And let's just hope it gets better and better. So track 3 is called Lizzie, 4 minutes 44, so 3 4s. You think about it like this would be into the whole 666 thing, so we're 2/3 of that. Sure, let's hit it. Let's hear it. Let's go for it. Track 3, Lizzie. Sick, 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 sick. Fantastic, brilliant. Loved that song. That was Lizzie. I sort of worried, well, I didn't worry, but I expected after the first two tracks that the album was going to continue pretty much in that mold for the entire rest of the album, as do a lot of, like, you know, metal LPs, noise rock EPs, things like this. But no, that was so different. That loud, quiet dynamic that was pretty much the basis and the, you know, gimmick of the song just worked an absolute treat. That was absolutely fantastic. I love just how quiet those quiet sections were, with that sort of sing-songy vocal melody, super light guitar, even slightly like that percussion. I like how rough and off-kilter it was, like almost completely arbitrary, which I thought really worked. Contrasted with that super ultra heavy, you know, the loud sections, which is sort of like almost a throwback to a Pixies sort of thing, the loud quiet dynamic, but this takes it to an extreme with that super loud section of that ultra heavy metal riffing, fantastic drumming, some nice fast fills in there, which it's little things like that, along with the high guitar solos and stuff, that I keep talking about things cutting through the mix well in a lot of things, a lot of albums, and that is an example of something that cuts through the mix well, because it adds just a slightly different change of pace and a slightly different contrasting element to the song to create a nice sort of tension and bring out the extremes, the two extremes of what any individual song is doing extremely well, and that was on full display there. So yeah, drumming fantastic. Vocals were, I mean, I keep hearing more. I promised I wouldn't mention Tool, but I just keep hearing more Maynard here, or rather, I probably keep hearing this guy in Maynard. I wish I'd listened to this first, honestly. Yeah, the amount of through lines I hear with other material is just too many to count. So yeah, and I thought the track was the perfect length. It only did that sort of loud, quiet thing about 4 times, which, you know, too many times I think it would have gotten a bit old. So again, they know how to pace and sequence and structure their tracks perfectly. Perfect length. And yeah, that end section with the guitar harmonics, fantastic. It's just a really awesome track, and not what I expected from this album at all, especially given the first 2 tracks. So that's the fantastic track. The first 3 tracks have been brilliant so far. I'm just excited to see where the album's going to go from here. Track 4 is called Going Blind, 4 minutes 33. Let's go. It took me a moment to warm up to that chord structure and the drumming and stuff, but I think after it hit that chorus, that refrain of where you actually sing the title, it sort of brought everything into like sharp contrast. I thought that was quite good. Okay, that's a super interesting track. A weird track, weirder than the first three, I think. With the first three, you sort of it's pretty easy to like get what's going on, but with that track, I think I liked it, but man, it's a difficult one to like really enjoy because it sort of does little things to subvert your expectations and throw you up a little bit, trip you up. So I think at least, at the very least, you can call that track super clever. Firstly, that chord structure, like it's weird because it starts off in this sort of major thing for those, or at least parts of it, and then like resolves down to a minor chord, which is interesting because you sort of get, what's the word, propelled, I think, between these two completely different harmonic styles in the space of like 2 or 3 chords. Which is interesting. I mean, everything so far has been like straight up minor key stuff, the first 3 tracks. So it's interesting to hear that and also the tension that it creates, the musical tension, which I think is resolved extremely well in the best part of the track, which is the I messed that up, but you know, the because I think I'm going blind bit. With that awesome little guitar lick that comes after. I love that line. I love how his vocals are double tracked in that, so it really thickens up that melody, makes it extra syrupy and soupy and nice. And of course, that guitar line's brilliant. He took a solo. Whoever the guitarist is took a solo in that was almost like roots rock, almost country rock. And I almost think that track is like if that was sped up and sort of put to a conventional country song, sort of like a backing. I honestly think that you wouldn't even question it. It's almost like a country rock song with that sort of chord movement and those twangy vocals and twangy guitar, but just put on a super sludgy backdrop. So I think that's really interesting how that sort of juxtaposition of styles is done pretty well. So yeah, a really fucking memorable track. I like how it's pretty much there was no real sort of chorus verse sort of thing. It was like an A-B section that were pretty much the same, but just with alternating vocal melodies. Like you had the weird quarter movement section, and then you had the I think I'm going blind bit with the guitar. And pretty much just going back and forth throughout that entire track, with not much dynamic contrast. So I thought that was really interesting how that was done. Again, no dynamic contrast doesn't have to be a bad thing all the time, and I think in that case it worked in a really interesting way. So what a weird track. What a weird track coming after those first 3, which, you know, fall into pretty recognizable idioms. That this one doesn't. That one didn't at all. It was like a mutated, fucked up country song with like a sludge sort of filter put over the top of it. And honestly, I thought that was really cool and really effective. These guys would like kill live, I get the sense. I need to make this, once COVID's over and like shows are back on around the world, I need to make a point of seeing these guys live, because I feel like this would blow my eardrums out and I'd have the best time doing it, honestly. So I look forward to that if that ever happens. But we're moving on now to track 5, which is called Honey Bucket rather. All 4 tracks so far have done completely different things pretty much, except for the first 2 were similar, but not identical, which I like. Let's see if track 5 does something different again. So short track, 3 minutes, Honey Bucket, ba-bam.
Whoop.
Okay. Again, like once again, they do something completely different, which is such a rarity and such a welcome rarity for metal because to do the same thing across the length of an album, and I've said this before, the thing that you do has to be like brilliant. So I'm not saying bands can't do it, but honestly, I think the best surefire way into my heart, as I think I've said earlier, is to make every track do a different thing, and this does once again a completely different thing. This pretty much drops the sludgy sort of doom metal style, adopts a much faster, like almost thrash style, particularly in that first minute, like with that jerky sort of art punk almost drum pattern provided by that amazing drummer. I haven't given the drummer enough credit so far. That drum work with just all over the place and those double kick drums and everything, fantastic. And added again, I said this spiky, angular, jerky rhythm to the first minute, while the sort of guitar was doing the thrashy sort of thing. I like how in that section it never really confined to a simple, 1, 2, 3, 4 sort of thrash metal feel. So I thought that was fantastic, that first minute. And then the last 2 minutes were really cool too. Went into sort of more conventional, like hard rock sort of style, but still with elements of thrash. They seem to be channeling like a Metallica or something, particularly in that second half of the track with the singer's, the way he phrases his lines within the melody and just the sort of raspy tone of his voice, the raw raspy tone of his voice, that sort of channels more of a James Hetfield than it does like a Maynard James Keenan. And again, I thought that was just a really effective last 2 minutes of just straight ahead hard rock to end the track. I like that the 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2 rhythms in those little refrains, which were mostly vocal free. And yeah, the way it ended on that fade out was awesome as well. It did so much in 3 minutes and managed to be so memorable for like a tiny track in the scheme of things. So yeah, I think that track just demonstrates like this band's versatility and how they can go from something like the third track, whose name escapes me, Lizzie, or like even a Hooch or something, which are both slow sort of grinding tracks. Then go to a track, Going Blind, which is like almost a country rock song, and then track 4 rather, which is almost a country rock song, and then track 5 like this, which is just like all over the place and angular and cool and spiky. I think that just is a testament to how good this band is, and I really love it. This is a really lovable album. Like it's easy, it's endearing itself to me super easily. I like it a lot so far. But we're going to power through. Again, I won't try and force my commentary to be longer than it is if I don't have anything much more of importance to say, so I'll just move on here. Track 6 is called Hag Me, and this is long. This is 7 minutes long. So we got an epic track here. Not the epic track on the album by the looks of it, but an epic track. So let's see what it does. Hopefully it doesn't get boring over the 7 minutes. But they're creative so far. I'm sure they'll find a way to spice it up a bit. So track 6, Hag Me. Let's go. That wasn't my speakers like fucking up, was it? Was that part of the actual song? I hope so. And I wouldn't put it past that song because that was a weird fucking song. That was a weird fucking song. And again, just like a completely different idiom, a completely different style. Whereas the previous track, track 5, yeah, Honey Bucket, like sort of did the whole thrash metal things, mixed with like some elements of art punk and stuff, post punk. A much faster, more like headbangish sort of track. This is like sludge metal that we've heard before on this album, but taken to like its most extreme end. Like sludge metal, as sludgy and as slow and as distorted, as crunchy, as even as formless as you can possibly get it. Like that was almost in how slow and formless that was for the majority of it, minus that cool little section at the end where it sort of went into a straight on sort of 4/4 thing. It was pretty much like as close to ambient as a sludge metal song can get. The rhythm was all over the place. The drum hits were obviously adhering to some like time or groove or pattern that I couldn't quite perceive on first listen, because I mean that whatever it was, they were like accurate, obviously, and in time. But whatever it was like so slow and sludgy that it was just hard to pick out, you know, a rhythm. And at a certain point, without like experience in it, the human brain can't pick out like pulses and meters below a certain what's the word, tempo. And I think that effect was really coming into effect. It was like a very floaty part of the track. It was like floating in an abyss or something. Similar, okay, I'm going to name drop Tool again, similar to Flood by Tool. There's my millionth reference for this episode. Sorry, Melvins fans, if you don't like Tool. Sorry, I'm a Tool fan. Don't at me. I mean, was that like the catchiest song in the world? Hell no. Is that a song I'd probably find myself listening to in isolation a lot? Hell no. Is that awesome as like a scene, tone setter and a scene setter, and a track to like break up the fast sort of tempos that the last couple tracks have been going in? Absolutely, hell to the freaking yes. And I really respect that song's place in the album. I thought that was a ton of amorphous, strange fun. And yeah, I have not much else to say. I haven't really looked at the album art too much, but it's funny how, and I'm guessing this is deliberate again, how disparate that is to sort of the content and the sound of the album. It's quite funny. And there's just like two little blonde kids just playing with a puppy. Just playing with a puppy, or maybe two puppies. I don't know, the album cover isn't too big on here. So with that in mind, let's move on to track 7, which is called Set Me Straight. And in the sort of the mode of contrast, which apparently we've been going for from this album a lot, this song is just 2 minutes 25 long. It's a short track. It's the shortest one, in fact, so far on the album. So let's see if it's a speedier sort of thing. Who knows, they might pull off like a 2-minute ambient, like drone metal track. We'll see, who knows. Track 7, Set Me Straight. okay, well, I wasn't wrong, first of all. I mean, that's completely different to the track that comes before it. Like, literally could not be more different. That was, I mean, that never changed feel or time signature or tone even. That was just straight to the point, straight ahead, sludgy stuff. And to that end, I liked how, even if the melody or the chords particularly weren't that inspiring or anything, I love how chunky and full-bodied that production was. That's probably some of the heaviest guitar sounds on the album so far, in terms of just like brute force chugging, punchy sort of sounds. So I liked that. I liked how the drumming sort of melded into that. Can't really hear what the bass is doing as much on this album so far. It's probably there, no doubt, but it just doesn't, stick out in the way that some other metal bands make it stick out. But then we get to that chorus, the down, 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 down thing, which I find that really interesting. I could almost hear like something like that being recorded by a Weezer, or like even a Blink-182 or something. I can't tell if they're taking the piss a little bit with that, but and that vocal melody, I mean, it wasn't great, and it was very like pop rock-esque, like even skate punk-esque. I don't know, just something about it, something about the twang of it. Maybe that was just the style they were going for, but to me that felt more than a little out of place, and their vocal melodies have generally been pretty cool so far. I mean, look at like, what's a good example? Like Going Blind or Hooch or something. Their vocal melodies are like dense and cool. But that was sort of, I don't know, it was strange. It was a very strange vocal melody. Again, very, like Weezer or like Blink-182 or, I don't know, like a 90s sort of pop rock or like pop punk band. I don't know, it's some ineffable quality of it, I'm sure. So that track was probably my least favourite so far. Again, that's like, it's still fine. I liked parts of it, I liked the production a lot. And that's alright, like one misstep so far is a pretty good track record for an album. So let's move on to track 8. It's called Sky Pop. It fits into the album cover. Then there's some Sky Pops on the cover. There are some Sky Pops. 3 minutes 50. So another shorter track. We have a run of short tracks coming on here. They get even shorter and shorter up until the last two. So let's see what direction this takes the album in this time. Okay, something tells me, so my sleeves are not rolled up, this is a travesty. Something tells me that track is probably one of the more derided ones on this album. I don't know why, but I can just like sense that people who like this album, like sludge metal fans and stuff, wouldn't like that track just because of like how on the surface like pointless and interlude-ish it seems. And to those people I say, you are so wrong if you exist. That is genuinely one of my favourite tracks on the album so far. That was just an absolute riot to listen to. It's just super fun and funny. Firstly, I mean, that whole track was like, it was a vehicle for the bass. Whoever the bassist is, I said earlier, like not long ago, that he hadn't been sort of getting his just desserts on this album so far. He'd been sort of playing a really understated role, staying to the back a bit, just acting as like a solid underpinning while the vocalist and the drummer and everything do their thing. But I mean, on that track there are no guitars, like there are no chunky power chords, there are no sort of melodic guitar lines, there are no wailing solos. It's just the bass work, and that bass line, especially in the second half of the track, with that funky sort of Rage Against the Machine-esque boom, 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 sort of thing that he had going on. Just brilliant, just brilliant bass work, and I think the drumming with how sort of simple 4 to the floor it was with that kick drum, like accenting every beat on the beat, acted as a fantastic, solid sort of foundation for the bass guy to go crazy and do a bunch of soloing sort of stuff on the first half, which wasn't as tightly composed, and then in the second half just underpinning it all with that solid in your face bass line. I love how it was pushed to the front of the mix. I love how the drums are pushed back a bit. Essentially this is like the showcase for that soloist, so fantastic. He did a really fantastic job. Don't have enough nice things to say about that bass. I thought it was mixed fantastically. I thought the tone of it probably could have been richer, but it's a noise rock album, so of course there's going to be a bit more of a scuzzy sort of tone. And just some of the licks he had there were spot on, so that was fantastic. Also, the singer, vocalist, I don't know if the singer plays any instruments. He could be the bassist for all I know, but the singer was again doing like channeling a different sort of style. Again, speaks to his versatility, and this time he was almost going for more of like a Les Claypool from Primus. In fact, that whole track with its sort of bass heavy push, while still remaining in that sort of odd sort of funk metal groove, was very reminiscent of Primus. Very reminiscent of Primus. And again, I don't know who came first, but I think like Frizzle Fry was 1990 or 91, right? So if this was an 80s album, it predated that by a lot. So I wouldn't be surprised again if Les Claypool and Primus added to the list of fans of this album who were big time influenced by it. Yeah, so I thought that twang sort of going on with his vocals like this was very Les Claypool-esque. Yeah, I thought that was kept to the back nicely, so it's again to give the bass focus, but almost added a sort of that nice sort of twangy element to the track. Made it almost like it made it sort of funny, made it quite humorous. So that, and which just generally in itself made that song Skypart a ton of fun. Absolutely, it's just a blast of a song and one of my favourites on the album so far. I'm glad that picked things up after track 7 because I thought that track 7 was far from my favourite. So track 9, we're moving on, is shorter than track 5. It's called Joan of Arc. So they're going historical on us. 3 minutes 36. I have enough faith in them at this point to assume they're going to be like doing something completely different again on this track. So let's see what that different thing is. Track 9. Oh my god. You can't see I have a chair here that I can put my legs up on if I want, but I don't normally do it. Makes a good thing to like punch if I suddenly become like psycho. So they follow up like a funky sort of not even metal track, like just a funk track with like some of the heaviest sounding metal I've ever heard in my life. I mean, I think my reaction to that, while I was listening to it, it speaks for itself. It speaks for everything I love about that track. Yeah. Wow. Just wow. The heaviest thing on the album by far. One of the best. Like, that's sort of, like, again, one of the most further extremes of sludge metal that you can get. I loved the double-tracked vocals. I loved the harmonies that were laid on each other. I loved how it confined to one chord. I love how simple the drumming was. I love the dynamic between like the drumless sections and then the extremely heavy drum sections. I love that like first minute, which is just kept with that chugging guitar chord. Wow, those brilliant melodies soared over the top of it from the vocalist. I loved every fucking thing there is to like about a song, about that track. Wow, man. I mean, what more is there to add? I think that's about covered it. Man, I'm glad this introduced me to this album. This is just some of the most fun I think I've ever had reacting to an album on this. Wow. Track 10 is called Teat, so we're going even shorter. This is 2 minutes 52. Time for me to suckle at the teat of this album. Well, that was a slightly painful way to end that track. Yeah, so that was not particularly essential, not fantastic. That was track 10, Teat. I almost say, yeah, I think the most important thing is me learning. Now, this album was written in 93 and not like 85, 86 as I thought it was. So I think that makes the Tool comparisons a lot more apt. And I'm not saying like, say, a Trent Reznor or Maynard James Keenan or like an Adam Jones or someone wasn't listening to Melvins when they wrote a lot of their music. I mean, I'm sure, you know, I don't know where this band's from, but I'm sure sort of lines of influence like permeated all these bands at the time. And they were probably all friends, honestly. But I think now that I know that this is later, I think the inspiration is more reciprocal. So it travelled probably from, say, Broken by Nine Inch Nails or like an Undertow on Opiate by Tool onto this album rather than vice versa. So that makes a lot of the sounds make a lot more sense to me. Like, for example, just going back now, like, I wouldn't be surprised if before recording a track like Hag Me, like the band listened to Flood or something by Tool, because they're a very similar sort of thing. Again, that doesn't make the album, that doesn't change the quality of the album at all in my mind. I just think it's interesting if we're talking about the influences thing to at least like get my terms right, you know. So that's the actual track itself. I hear a lot more grunge on that track. And that sort of had more of that mid-tempo verse chorus sort of thing with sort of the 3 chords in the chorus. It's sort of repeated quite conventionally. That was a fairly conventional track as far as metal goes. Hearing a lot more like early Nirvana on that. And it's still impressive that like every single track sounds almost completely different and draws from like a different set of influences, it seems. So that was more conventional, that was more grunge. I still liked it, though, enough. I mean, far from a standout on this album when you have a ton of other more impressive tracks, but it kept it nice and succinct at 2 minutes 52, didn't overstay its welcome, and it didn't go on long enough for me to actually become offensive to me. So I was fine with that. I mean, not a highlight, but not the worst track on the album, I don't think either. Yeah, I just don't feel as bad for making the comparisons to Opiate and stuff, because if you listen to like Hush by Tool off that album, listen to a track like that, like there are a lot of through lines between those two tracks. So that's really interesting. Makes a lot of that make more sense to me. So we're moving on to track 11, we're on to the final 3 tracks. We've got 2 short tracks and 1 like massive track. So I don't know where that's going to go. This track is called Kapash, and it's Kapash, who knows? I think it's probably Kapashi because it sounds like Apache. The American indigenous thing. This is 2 minutes and 7 seconds long, so short track. And we'll see what it does with that 2 minutes. Wow, keeps it short too. I mean, they could have extended that to 4 minutes, but honestly, I just love how punchy and to the point that is. Fantastic song, really fantastic song, and stuff like that just makes me really happy when I hear it, because I just love hearing music that does just really cool stuff like that, really simple stuff, like that bass line, the dun dun dun, sort of simple thing which had that counterpoint at the end in the guitars, the dun 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 ascending thing. Those two just snaked around each other in the most brilliant way, and I love how that same motif underpinned pretty much the entire track. I love that. Fantastic foundation for the track. That almost had more of like a Motorhead sort of feel to it, veering on punk music, and it's probably the short track length that's making me go to like punk as an influence. But I think that was really fantastic. Again, much more Motorhead-ish with that sort of that drum groove with the open hi-hat, the do-pa sort of thing. I love that. And yeah, I mean, with it like a super short track like that, it's one of those things where there's, again, not a whole lot of super complex stuff to say about it, but I just loved how the track melded and morphed and fused around that one like repeated 3-note motif that went throughout the entire thing. I thought it was a fantastic motif, and I'm a sucker for simple stuff like that. Vocals are great. The groove was great. Super fast track, probably one of the faster ones on this album so far. And yeah, one of my favorites on the album so far. I just love how short and punchy and direct and aggressive it was. And, I'm used to, so far with these albums that I've been listening to, a lot of them are like long, long tracks. And it's sort of refreshing to hear like a short track that isn't an interlude, that just sort of gets straight to the point, does what it does, and then leaves. So that's one I'll be listening to a lot in the future. I think it's absolutely fantastic. Okay, so we're at the second last track now. We're getting through it. Hasn't felt like a super long album so far, but we're getting through it. This is called Pearl Bomb, Pearl Harbor. Is that what it's referring to? Who knows? 2 minutes 46, so yeah, so long. Basically an epic track. And yeah, I just want to hear it. So I'm not delivering much commentary before the tracks. Maybe you like that I'm not, but I just want to hear these songs. Let's go. Okay, that was just fun. Like I love that this album has like just a sense of humor in it, and not in like sort of the dumb sort of like it doesn't feel like it's being a parody of anything. And I often have trouble with humor in music because I prefer musicians to sort of take themselves fairly seriously, and that's why I often often find it a bit hit and miss with super sort of jokey lyrics and like things that are meant to be obvious pastiches. I think it can be very hit and miss. I mean, there are a few bands that do it well, but this didn't feel like that. That just felt like the band wanted to be weird, and they have this sort of subversive sense of humor. So the entire percussion of that track was just, I think that was it. It sounded like a drum machine. I mean, there was a little bit of like clipping at the end or something that made me almost think it was just a sample from the drummer playing a kick pattern with hi-hat or something, just like extracted surgically and just repeated over and over again. But it created this ultra simple, ultra repetitive, ultra like drilling, electronic sounding rhythm that was just fantastic. I love how it like barely, if at all, changed up throughout the entire 2 minutes, whatever, of that track. The bass line was really cool. I love how it repeated. I mean, it wasn't like a particularly pretty bass line or like a groovy bass line or anything, but I love how it was quite discordant, quite dissonant. Same with the vocal was doing a more, again, like a Les Claypool sort of thing. I love how that sort of rode over the bass switch which eventually sort of fell apart towards the end and went all over the place. I just thought every element of that track was really fun and funny and melded together well. And like, who cares if it wasn't virtuosic or if it wasn't particularly like a pop song or catchy or anything? Like, fuck pop songs. Seriously. Disclaimer, I really like pop music. I'm being ironic. Please don't kill me. I'd like to see how they perform a track like that live. Just imagine hearing that in concert. Like, they come out for an encore and like, alright guys, we're going to do one of our biggest hits. It's one of our final songs. Are you ready? And then they just proceed to like turn on the drum machine and play that. I just love this band's sensibility. Like, I get this band. I feel like I get them. I get their sense of humor. Just fucking fantastic. Track 13. This is a huge one, so I'm ready to sit back. I'm guessing this is going to be like a toolish doom metal sort of epic. Before they were sort of doing that, so they I mean, you know, Third Eye wasn't released till like 2 years after this. So let's see if it predates this. Let's see if we can actually see some influence going from here to Tool. You never know. Track 13. Let's close the album out with a huge ass song, Sped Eagle Beagle. How long is the track? 10 minutes 14. And we're done. Woohoo! We're done. Yeah, so I went through, while I was talking about that, like, pretty much my entire opinion on it, so I don't need to rephrase that, I don't think. Oh my god. Melvins Houdini, what a fun, lovable, just brilliant album with a fantastic sense of humour. I just love it to death. First of all, I love how many different styles it attempts over the course of the album, under the ostensible, guise of like sludge metal. I mean, from the sort of the punk like abandon of a track like like Honey Bucket or something, with the ultra pummeling spiky riffs and percussion work, to the absolute sort of drony like doom metal odyssey that comes with a Hag Me or something, to the more conventional first two tracks that are more like almost pop ready, even to some of the weirder like country elements and pop rock elements they sprinkle in here and there, and even down to a fucking like weird like electronic industrial track in track 12, Pearl Bomb. I just think it's all so clever how they managed to trip themselves up so much across the course of the album and do like completely different things. I think it's absolutely brilliant, and it means that like I've coming out of this album, I can like describe everything that this album has done, and I can like actually describe each track in detail without having to re-listen to them. So I've forgotten none of these tracks, and honestly, that is a massive achievement, and especially a massive achievement for metal. I think the band has excellent chemistry, and I think chemistry between band members is not something that's talked about often enough. So, by the way, it's getting so grainy, it's getting dark outside. But, yeah, I think chemistry between band members is just spot on this album, and I think they all understand what they're doing, what each other are doing musically, and what they themselves are doing musically, and they just fold and mesh together in the most interesting ways. Like the bass playing complements perfectly, the guitar playing complements perfectly the drums and then the vocals. It's all fantastic, and the vocalist, to his credit, can imitate, or not imitate, but put his own little twist on so many styles of vocals and so many tones, timbres, etc., so on and so forth, that I just think it's brilliant what he manages to achieve across the course of the album. I think he has a brilliant voice. It's made for this style of music, and it's made for the sense of humour that this band has and this album has. So that's all absolutely spot on for me. Starting from the first two tracks, which are probably the most similar tracks on the album. They start the album off. Hooch and Night Goat, two sort of slow, pummeling, propulsive sludge metal tracks that have more of like a more conventional, less humour-filled sensibility to them. Both of which I thought were fantastic. I couldn't preference one over the other, honestly. I mean, Hooch is probably more like immediately sort of in your face and like mission statement making. I thought it's a fantastic way to start the album. Like, what a way to announce this band's presence on the scene, honestly. And I don't know if this is their debut. I don't think it is. I remember reading. But honestly, what a way to, announce this album. So I thought that was fantastic. To Lizzie, which it is almost like alt rock, like in the way it does things, almost sort of Pixies-esque, even a lot of PJ Harvey's early stuff. I thought that loud, quiet thing that it had going on was absolutely brilliant. I love the guitar line that permeates both of those parts. Really clever songwriting, really simple songwriting, just fantastic. Then moving on to the weirdness of like a Going Blind, which which is still like up there, even though there's some weird tracks on this. This is one of the weirdest tracks on the whole album. With the sort of A-B dichotomy sections and the like weird almost country music affection to it. I thought that was really funny. Absolutely classic track. Again, not like one of the more easy to get into tracks on the album, but I thought that's where they started showing off their sense of humour a lot. Track 5, Honey Bucket, fantastic. I love the Gang of Four-esque angular rhythms on it. And I loved how the first minute was super fast and the second minute was almost like a Metallica, a thrash metal song with the vocalist doing a James Hetfield thing. Brilliant. Hag Me, the epic track of the album. Super slow, atmospheric doom metal that's easy to like lose yourself in. Absolutely, totally lose yourself in. I hear a lot of like early Tool influence on a track like that. That was cool. Semi Straight was one of the, I think, few missteps. I mean, I'm sure that was just as tongue in cheek as the rest, but the fact is that if it reminds me of like a Blink 182 or something, or My Chemical Romance, it shouldn't be on the album. So we can ignore that. That was a small misstep. But then it just went straight back to form with Sky Puff, which is the funky, bass heavy, super awesome track. Super, super awesome track. I love how there are no guitars, and I love how the sort of Primus thing was channeled throughout the whole thing. Fantastic. Joan of Arc. Oh my god, Joan of Arc. That was as like funereal and straight ahead, like absolutely crushing as this album gets. Just pummeling and just super aggressive with that one chord, just punch thing it had going on. Absolutely one of my favourites. Teat, less so. That was probably the most forgettable one, but I mean, it wasn't a disaster or anything. Quickly returned to form with Kapash, which is just simple 2 minutes, almost punk-like, introduce a motif, wrote it to the end. Then you have Pearl Bomb, which is just weird, and then the final track's Fed Eagle Beagle, which, I mean, only works because this album is what it is, and it only really worked in the context of this album. Just a neat sort of martial industrial drum solo. I mean, there's nothing more to talk about it in that context, except that honestly the balls they have to put that track to end an album like this. I mean, it's obviously influenced by like Disgustipated sort of thing, but I don't blame them for being influenced by Tool, first of all, and second of all, I think it added its own little spin. So the point of going through that was to mention that front to back, I love this album. Really fun album. There are some albums I sort of respect more than I like, even though like I think they're like 9 out of 10s. Like, for example, that Venetian Snares album, good example of an album that I like respect to no end. But this is an album that, I mean, it's not like a perfect album, but it's just pure fun. Absolutely pure fun, and I just had a blast listening to it. Quick top 3 is probably number 1, Joan of Arc. Number 2, let's go with number 2, maybe Honey Bucket, and number 3, Lizzie. For the reasons that I mentioned earlier, but a bunch of these tracks could honestly make a good argument to be in the top 3. So, Houdini by the Melvins, I love you. Thank you so much for watching. Watch all of my other videos if you feel like it. I have a lot more videos coming. They're in the works, don't worry. Subscribe, like, follow me on Instagram, email me if you have any concerns. Do all of that good stuff. And I am really excited to see you in the next video. So, see you guys, and sorry for the pixelation, my god.